Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to your Lunch Break Live. My name is Ivana Harinkyu if you're new here, and if you're not, thank you for coming back. Today is Monday, May the 16th, and today I am joined by our Alabama Education Lab reporter, Savannah Tryons-Fernandez. Now, Savannah is here today to tell us about some reporting that has been a school year in the making, and that is her reporting on the Magic City Acceptance Academy. Now, lately, you might have heard about the Magic City Acceptance Academy and has been mentioned in several political ads. We'll get into that a little bit later. But the academy is located in Homewood, Alabama, and it does service primarily LGBTQ kids, and they are essentially a gender and I guess that'd be the best way to say it, right? A gender affirming school there, or they are a school that lets people and lets kids and teenagers choose their gender there and live freely without worrying about bullying. I'm sure I messed up that introduction there, Savannah. There's kind of a lot to say about the academy in a short period. So, Savannah, we're going to talk about the academy. We're going to talk about a lot of the controversy that has come up about it recently. But first, correct me, tell me a little bit about the academy and kind of the short version there.
Yeah, so it's the South's first LGBTQ affirming charter school that opened this year in Homewood, just right across the Birmingham city line. It serves about 240 students of all backgrounds, like students that are LGBTQ, students who are not LGBTQ, but it is really focused on trauma-informed learning, social justice principles, things that cater to the students who have really been marginalized in their previous school environments, have been bullied, harassed. So yeah, it's open this year. It's graduating its first class in May. And this story that we put out today really focuses on that senior class who decided to transfer here in their last year.
Well, and there were 12 seniors who were going to graduate in this inaugural class from the Magic City Acceptance Academy. Savannah, I know you have been in that school at least maybe once a week or so since, I believe, November, so since the fall. So you've really been able to see the first school year at the academy. Now, we know that the academy, we've talked about this in years prior with our other education reporter, Trish Crane. She kind of kept us up to date about the school, and they've been applying for that charter for years. It kept getting denied. This kept being a conversation of saying, look, is this ever going to happen? It did happen again, and this was their first year. So this was a big year for that staff, for Principal Dr. Michael Wilson there to open those doors and welcome their kids. But you have something interesting in your story that I want to focus on for a second, and that is that Dr. Wilson said, look, we didn't know if we were going to get any seniors because, you know, you have to think, there are seniors who have maybe been at their school and with their friends for years. Why would they want to leave to try out a new school that is just opening, that is fresh, that is freshly painted, freshly opened? Why would they want to do that? So tell me a little bit about those seniors, those 12 seniors who made that decision to finish out their high school career at Magic City Acceptance Academy.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, I mean, transferring in your senior year is a hard decision. That's a big deal. Sometimes you're leaving behind friends. You're leaving behind the only environment you've known for the last 3 years. Maybe the middle school before that too was the, feeder school into that. So that's been your environment for so long. But for these 12 students, all of them, I spoke with all of them. They faced bullying, harassment to a really severe degree. It wasn't just occasional name calling. It was really brutal for a lot of them. And in Alabama, we know that that's the case for most LGBTQ students in schools. We added a stat in there that said 80% of LGBTQ students have faced at least one form of discrimination in their schools in the previous school year. So we know that that's common. And for these students, they really needed somewhere where they felt safe, where they could be themselves and connect with like-minded people who shared similar experiences. And that's what they did. One of the seniors, if you watch the video that accompanied the story, they say it was like dropping a magnet into a bottle of pins, how close they all were and how strong their friendships were off the bat. So this school has been really transformative for them. We've heard them say, they don't have to, from their parents, that their parents don't have to worry about whether they're still going to be alive tomorrow. They don't have to worry about having to like the students that would self-harm. They don't have to worry about that. They've been clean for this school year. It's just the way that this school has made them feel safe, made them have given them a place where they belong and friends that are going to endure past this year. It's been really, really impactful to witness.
Well, and you even included an anecdote in your story about a teenage boy at that school who said that at his old school, he is transgender, and he said at his old school that he would actually have to make sure that he brought scissors or something to the bathroom with him. Or we hear from other students, again in your piece, who just wouldn't go to the bathroom and would have other health effects that would come from not using the restroom all day because they were afraid to go into their restroom at their school because of bullying and harassment and even being attacked in that bathroom. And again, that boy you mentioned, that teenage boy, said that he would bring some type of weapon into the bathroom just because he was so afraid. So that is kind of a theme, it seems like, with a lot of these kids, especially these seniors that transferred into the Magic City Acceptance Academy so that they would no longer face that type of bullying harassment. So we get the premise here. Let's kind of fast forward a little bit to the first days of school. We know that Dr. Wilson said those first days of school were hard, I'm sure, on everybody's staff, students, but he said that the students were very self-conscious, were very anxious. He said the students were often wearing things that kind of disguised their bodies. They seemed very nervous. They would carry around things for emotional support. And you take that mental image, you fast forward and look at the photos from prom last month, just a couple of weeks ago, that we have in your story. And you cannot really believe that these kids were the same ones that were so nervous at the beginning of the year that they wouldn't fit in. It seems like that transformation was pretty quick and pretty complete.
Yeah, well, the school took a lot of time to build those relationships. So, like you said, when they first walked in on that first day, another scene that we didn't include in there where parents came to the first day crying, saying that they were so happy to be there. They were so relieved they didn't have to go back to their old schools. But once they got inside, there is this anxiousness about being in a new place, not knowing what to expect. Dr. Wilson said, these are the students that have always had to look over their shoulder to see when the next bully is coming. So it's kind of natural when that's been your experience to just kind of be wrapped up in yourself. But the school really focused on relationship building. And so for those first 2 weeks, all they did was relationship building. They didn't even, start academic instruction. They sat and they talked about what their pronouns were, what their preferred names were, what they wanted each classroom's community norms to look like. So how would we hold each other accountable? What behaviors do we expect and do we think are appropriate from one another? And that just really kind of created this environment of, okay, we can be safe here. We can trust one another. We can trust that if something should happen, people will be held accountable for those actions. And in that environment, like you said, they transformed, they blossomed. We heard students say, it's not that I'm a new person. It's not that I've completely changed who I am. It's just that I can be who I am here and be okay with that. And that has allowed students to get higher grades because they feel safe participating in class. They feel comfortable raising their hand and talking with their teacher if they need extra help. We've heard that it's had huge improvements on their mental health. Like we said, they're not self-harming. They don't have those same suicidal ideations that they had. And on their physical health too, like with the bathrooms, a lot of the students would get UTIs because they wouldn't go to the bathroom all day because they felt so unsafe. But at Magic City, there are single occupancy, non-gendered bathrooms where you can go and feel comfortable doing so, not fear having someone drag you out or not fear that you have to bring scissors with you as protection.
Well, and you mentioned something there, Savannah, that I think needs a little bit more conversation. And that is also a little bit of rumor busting here, a little bit of myth busting. So this school accepts everybody, right? They are not only accepting LGBTQ kids and teenagers. It is grade 6 through 12. They accept everybody. They are a charter school. They are not going to turn you down because you are not gay or trans or anything other than heterosexual. So that's number one, myth busting here. But number two here, there are arguments. We've heard this from politicians. It is election year. It is primary season. Primaries are coming up just next week, if you can believe that. And there has been political ads targeted at this school. And there have been a lot of people who have said, this is a bad idea. This is not good for the kids, that you shouldn't be exposing kids to this, or you should not be making kids trans, making kids gay. So Savannah, again, you've been in this school for months now. Kind of bust some of those rumors for me, or shed a little bit of light there, pull back the curtain as to if any of this is really happening, and show us that side of this school.
Yeah, so on your first point about it being an LGBTQ school, I mean, in those political ads you mentioned, they call it a transgender school, although I'm not really sure what that means. But an LGBTQ school, yeah, a lot of the students are, and a significant portion of the students aren't. This is just, there are a lot of students of color who came here because they wanted to be in a place where they felt safer. There are a lot of students who came here because their district had a mask optional policy, and Magic City has had a mask mandatory policy throughout the entirety of the school year. And so it made them feel safe from COVID. So on that point, it's a lot of people who come here, not just LGBTQ students. Like you said, public charter schools have to accept everybody who applies, and that's exactly what they did. On the second point about the ads, yeah, this school has faced a lot of backlash, particularly in the gubernatorial race, where multiple candidates have put out ads calling it a transgender school, saying that the school is exploitative. But for example, in one of those ads, they used images of a drag show. But as we show in this article, that was a theme selected by the students, a fundraiser put on by the students, as faculty had their families in the audience watching, cheering them on. One of the students said it was the best moment of his school year. These are moments that are just community events that help build community amongst this new school environment. And the students have a lot of say in it. They call their students their constituents because they see it as a democracy where everybody is kind of involved in making decisions and creating these events together. And it was a really nice event that I was at that was, the teachers sang Disney songs and performed to Disney songs, and they had a great time, and it was used in a way that just wouldn't make sense if you were actually there watching it for yourself.
Well, and we actually had a column as well that we can link here from our columnist, Kyle Whitmire, who pointed out that some of these events are not really that much different than homecoming events that traditional public schools or even private schools have as well. So just as a side note there. But we've seen that not only from one candidate, now we've seen it from two candidates who maybe not called it out directly, but alluded to the school. So this caused some safety concerns as well at Magic City Acceptance Academy. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So after the ads were aired, people came to the school, would go into the parking lot, filming students, shouting Bible verses at them. These are students that have already experienced a lot of harassment. So it was very difficult. They stopped eating lunch outside, which is really normal for them all to be gathered on the blacktop. And instead they were inside, wary of, people shouting at them. They added new security guards. On the day of the prom itself, another ad aired questioning why a transgender school would exist in Alabama. And they had police at the door of the prom, only allowing certain people in. So it has been a really, unfortunate series of events for a school that has otherwise tried to make these students feel really safe.
This was a story that you did several weeks ago at this point. It's not, I believe, in your article today, but again, we can link that. And you said something, or you reported something that a student told you that I thought was so poignant at the time. And now this student said, everybody right now, especially everybody in Alabama, is talking about the LGBTQ community, is talking about the transgender community and transgender teens. And this student, he said, our whole point is for nobody to talk about us. Our whole point is to come here and go to school and not have anybody talk about us. And this has done the opposite somehow. Everybody is talking about us now. And I thought that was such an interesting anecdote because he really kind of pulled back that curtain to say, look, this is what we want. We just want to go to school. And to a separate point here, we have a lot of people who might say, giving criticism to the school, who might say that this is not a real school. Savannah, you have been in there. Is there academia happening? Are normal school classes happening here? Are these kids prepared for college, which at the end of the day is what school is supposed to do?
Yeah, school is happening. They're reading books, they're doing math lessons. I was just there during a human geography class where they were talking about, how oil pipelines move and doing debates for and against them. And it's a regular school, regular academic instruction. And the students have gotten higher grades being there because there is a proven link that when students feel safe in school, they do better academically. So this school has really benefited them academically. One of the students was failing her junior year because the mental health of being in that school environment and the pandemic and learning virtually were all kind of compounding. And now she's applying to aerospace engineering programs. And, it's been a 180 for a lot of them. And the academic foundation is definitely there. And it's also complemented by social emotional learning, restorative justice, trauma-informed principles. So they try to provide a more holistic, whole child approach.
So it sounds like what you're saying is these teenagers, and there's also, again, this is grades 6 through 12, so not just teens, also kids as well, middle schoolers. They are also getting their math classes, their reading classes, their social studies, or their history classes, whichever they call it. They are getting those classes. They are not specifically getting classes that are only about gender.
Oh, I mean, I don't even think they have classes about gender. It's just social studies, math, science, the same classes. They follow the standard Alabama curriculum. It's the same classes that you would get in a public school, but it's just done in this school with certain other elements included as well that focus on, like I said, trauma-informed principles, social emotional learning, kind of things that make it more focused on building a foundation for a safe, whole child approach.
Well, we know, again, that's something that I think a lot of people have really focused on, and focused on that this school is so different than other schools, and have not focused on the similarities, again, of the classes and the subject matter. And prom. We know that is something that I would assume most, if not all, high schools have in some form or fashion, and Magic City Acceptance Academy was no different. They had their first prom a few weeks ago. It was actually April 29th, as you mentioned. And again, you can see some of the photos from this prom on our website on AL.com, also in Savannah's story. And Savannah, tell me about the prom. I know that you got to attend the prom, and I know that you saw, again, that radical change in these kids that we were talking about from the beginning of the school year.
Yeah, it was just a really happy kind of cap off the school year moment. Seniors wanted to take pictures at the Birmingham Botanical Gardens before the prom, as many high schoolers in the Birmingham area do. The garden was filled, but a lot of the transgender Magic City students didn't feel comfortable getting out of their cars. So instead, they just went to the school cafeteria, and inside they could be comfortable. They could be themselves. They put on a big runway show where the students and teachers walked back and forth, strutting down the aisle that they created as their classmates cheered them on, and their teachers cheered them on. So it was really you could just see how happy people were, how they would feel comfortable enough to dance. I had one student come up to me and said, "Isn't it just so nice to be confident enough to dance?" So you could really see that in them and in that night.
It sounds like it was kind of a prom like any other prom at any other school.
Yeah, it was. It was just any other prom. I mean, some of the outfits were amazing, like paper mache mushroom costumes, and the unofficial theme was Enchanted Forest, because that was the first theme that the students voted on, and then they changed it to the Expressions Ball to kind of incorporate all the other ideas as well. So a lot of those students who did stick to that Enchanted Forest theme, went all out, creating centaur hooves from construction paper and furry socks, and had elfin ears on, and it was beautiful. And it was like any other prom, and where students felt happy to be there, safe enough to be there, and could celebrate with their friends.
Well, and again, for these 12 seniors, this is the end of their high school career. They're ending it out at the Acceptance Academy and headed off to whatever they're doing next. But the Acceptance Academy is still here. They are going to be gearing up, I'm sure, for their second year coming in the fall. So tell me about the school, what they're doing to prepare next year, any changes that they envision making, and also tell me about what Dr. Wilson and the other administrators there are planning to do in response for things like these political ads, or if they're going to do anything in response at all, or if they're just going to ignore it and keep doing what they do.
Yeah, so next year there are going to be 320 students. This year there are 240. So the school is just gradually getting bigger. They're going to add more programs like different languages like Mandarin. They're kind of expanding their academic curriculum. The school already has a huge art program, so that's really brought in a lot of people who are interested in participating in that. And, one day they talk about having the ability to have, dorms on site. So students from all over the state can come and study there and live there and not have to travel hours like we know some students do now, not have to travel hours back and forth to go to school. So that's, down the line, but it is a dream they have. In terms of how they're responding to the ads, it's a mix of not wanting to fuel the fire and not wanting to give them so much credit, but also reinforcing for the students that this is a place where they can feel safe. After those ads came out and after a lot of the LGBTQ legislation was passed in Alabama, they put signs throughout the school that they sourced from an online support group from all over the world, from Prague, from Norway, from Tampa Bay, that said, we love you, we support you, we're here for you. So the students could see that as they went through their day. They had signs going up the parking lot driveway also that said things like trans is beautiful, you belong here. So they're really just trying to enforce, like you belong here, we accept you. And just kind of continuing to create this very resilient community that they formed in that first year.
Savannah, your reporting is so interesting, and I think will really shed a lot of light on the Magic City Acceptance Academy and just the concept of an LGBTQ affirming school for people who are not familiar. Again, we're going to leave that link to Savannah's work here. We also have a lot of coverage of the Magic City Acceptance Academy and of Alabama's new law that bans gender affirming medical treatment for transgender minors, which was put on hold over the weekend. But we have a lot of coverage of that, both from our team at AL.com and from our Alabama Education Lab, which Savannah is part of. We're going to leave links here to all of those things so you can really get caught up and learn about this school and more about this concept. So Savannah, thank you for your reporting here. I can imagine it was interesting going back to prom. I don't even know what I would do if I had to go back to a high school prom at this point. But I know that, again, from those photos, it looked like it was a lot of fun. So Savannah, thank you for your reporting. Everybody watching, thank you. We'll see you tomorrow.